Expelled college students of Reddit. Why are you expelled? I went to a private Christian university, and I have a friend who got expelled for supposedly exorcising a demon out of someone in the middle of a wide open courtyard. I unintentionally got another student expelled. We were critiquing websites we had built when I noticed one that looked exactly like mine with a few tweaks. I popped open the source and noticed it was a line-for-line copy of my code with a few changes to the CSS. I brought it up to the professor to protect myself in case he noticed them, though I doubt I would have been suspected. Mine was more cohesive. The changes he did make didn't make the site appealing. Anyway, apparently it was his third time plagiarizing. After twice you go on trial with the school. If you don't get expelled, then a third time is the nail in the coffin. Edit. I did not get expelled, haha. This is just a third-person anecdote. Edit 2. We routinely critiqued work in class. Most of our sites were built through CodePen. All he needed was any student's CodePen username and he had access to the code. I am about 99.3% sure it's how he did it. You didn't get them expelled. They got themselves expelled by being that stupid. My engineering program has one strike, that's it. The fact that this person got caught twice, was given another chance and continued to plagiarize is ridiculous. I spent too much time drinking and not going to class. I was a junior with a 1.6 overall GPA. University said they didn't need milk around there and would open my spot for someone who would appreciate it. This got my attention. I went to the dean and talked with him for a couple of hours trying to get back in. He said no. 19 out of 20 of you guys go back to doing the same thing. I told him I would be the exception. He gave me another chance. From then on out it was 4.0 every semester. I finally got my GPA up over 2.5 so I could graduate. I made sure and went back to the dean's office to thank him and tell him that I was that 1 out of 20 that made it. For being off campus with a member of the opposite sex without proper supervision. No, seriously. A guy and a girl in my uni, which is located in a conservative country, were caught making out in the stairway. Both were legally adults. Girl's parents were called. They took her away, so technically not expelled, and got her married to another guy already lined up. Guy was transferred to lesser known college where he didn't perform well but landed a shitty job. Edit. Greetings, my fellow Indians. I was making a search engine for our school teacher evaluation page. It absolutely blew up in popularity and a large portion of the school was using it, about 5k views per day. Essentially it was like grade my professors, except it used the evils that they force students to do at the end of the class as data. I also added features that made it more desirable to students. It became so popular that it was showing up on the front page of Google for certain teacher names. Some of those teachers had low ratings and got pissed off and complained. I had unintentionally violated IP laws because the evaluations were under password protections and my site was not. The only reason I didn't get expelled was because the dean of my department had my back. He did research and concluded the information should not have been private in the first place, then sent a public information request to make it so my project did not break the law. I definitely had people asking for my expulsion for a scary amount of time. That must have been extremely scary. I can't imagine getting expelled for something like that. Good thing the dean had your back. Hope it all worked out. Also seems super short-sighted. You are unhappy with your rating on a website and as a result make the one guy who controls that website, and if he wants to your rating, your enemy. Yeah, I recently wrote a required review on a teacher that she brought up in class. Apparently it was so bad it made her cry. I feel horrible because I used anonymity to my advantage to berate someone. But at the same time I feel like she should have expected at least one horrible review. And I don't think it was necessary to talk about in front of all my classmates. Anonymous reviews always stir up trouble. And I'm pretty sure she's trying to figure out who it is right now. Dart. Wish me luck. They generally aren't supposed to read those until after the class has ended because of possible retaliation. If you notice, teachers usually leave the room and someone else gives it to you. You may need to speak to your dean about that. Yeah, that's not right. A student drops off the evaluations at a separate office at my school. Our professors don't ever touch the forms. Please tell me what school you went to. For a dean to be that intelligent and high-minded, it makes me want to recommend that place to other people. Some of those teachers had low ratings and got pissed off and complained. Or they could have, improved to be better professors. I got thrown out after I graduated from a master's degree program. The teacher asked me out for drinks when I asked to talk about one of my papers. I turned him down. I had to take a class with him in my next to last semester and he tried to throw me out for plagiarism. I tried to press harassment charges and the ombudsman talked me out of it by saying I would be stuck in his class if I pressed charges. The ombudsman asked to contact administrators at the school and urged me to get an incomplete in the guy's class and just graduate next term. After graduation I am getting ready to go on job interviews and I receive a letter telling me I have to enroll in 4 courses and get A's to offset the F the teacher in question wants to give me. I follow up and the teacher, who is now the chair of the program, elects himself my academic advisor and takes over the situation. He fakes my grades and tells me I have 6 weeks to complete the entire course all over again. He tells me if I do my best he will make it possible to graduate as it's mathematically impossible. I can't complete the work in time and he throws me out. I'm given permission to reapply and soon it becomes apparent they are not going to let me in to fix the situation. I contact the graduate department and meet with their legal counsel. I show them the faked grades, explain the rule violations and inform them of my having reported the guy. They tell me to try to work with the program again and then they will intervene. The program refuses any solution involving my readmission. The graduate dean allows me to file academic grievances and rules that there are lots of things wrong but does nothing about them. He concludes by telling me I can either get readmitted or give a replacement course via transfer. I take the course and submit it. The graduate dean says they can't accept the course if I can't get enrolled. Dean rules the matter reviewed and closed. I sue the school alleging unjust enrichment. I provide all of the documents and records as it was all conducted via email and I have my student folder. These get certified via discovery. The school evokes sovereign immunity and says that since the fraud and negligence happened more than 2 years before I filed, they are immune to prosecutions. Judge agrees. I file appeal. As of August of this year, it will be 10 years. Holy fuck. All because you turned down some perv professor for drinks. You wanted to talk about a paper for God's sake. He should not be a teacher. Thus is just another reason why college is fucked. Pay all this money and some creeper professor decides to fuck over your life. And all colleges' judicial systems are fucked as all hell. My roommate got expelled for basically never going to class, not even when there was an important exam. He spent all night smoking weed, with me, and playing video games, not with me, and then slept all day until about 5 PM. Like I would wake up, go to my 8:30 lecture, get lunch, go to lab 2-5, then come back to my room and my roommate was still sleeping. I found out the following summer that he had gotten a letter from the university asking him not to come back. Last I heard of him, he had enrolled at a commuter school, where he made the dean's list. I'm dealing with a roommate like this now. He was kicked out probably a year ago but is just paying rent at our apartment. It's 3 AM here and he woke up 3 hours ago. I sleep in a lot when I can, but I can't even see how sleeping that late is physically possible. It's part of a rotating sleeping schedule. When I was on my gap year a couple of years ago, it would go in cycles. Wake up at 9-10, maybe 11 AM, and going to bed past midnight. Then one night I'd go to bed at 4 AM, and wake up a little bit later, maybe wake up at noon. A few days later, 6 AM, wake up at 2 PM, and it just cycles like that. Eventually I'd end up going to bed at 8 to 9 AM, waking up deep into the afternoon. When you sleep through the day, you don't feel like you get the same quality sleep as you would sleeping through the night. I'd regularly go to bed at 8 AM and wake up at 5 to 7 PM, and still be fucking tired. Ah man. Living this right now. Have been doing this for months now. I always feel so good when I have a normal cycle but I always slip up. I had to get up at 9 AM and now I'll probably go to sleep at 11 AM and sleep until nighttime. However, the reason I had to do that is cause I'm in therapy again. So yay for some progress, I guess. Heard this story of this dude who got kicked out for leaving on break to train with Al-Qaeda. Flip side of that, there was a guy who was in my OTC for about 3 months. Seemed nice enough, bit quiet, and eventually just stopped coming and vanished off everyone's radar. About a year later a picture of him got posted next to the other mugshots of people not allowed inside the barracks for security reasons. Staff, why is Lee not allowed on mod property? Oh, he went to Syria and fought ISIS for like 6 months. Dude had just gone full soldier of fortune and helped out the Kurds for a while. Last I heard he was saving up for some body armor and another plane ticket. Expelled because my GPA dropped below the competitive level for the engineering school at my college. I was given the option of transferring to a different school. They recommended I go into the humanities, or be expelled. Well, thankfully I had a job from the previous summer that was willing to hire me on full-time before this happened. So I took the expulsion and went to work full-time. Since then, I've gotten my certifications and work in the trades doing fairly well for myself. So, yay. Edit. Since a lot of people have asked similar questions, I'll answer them up here. I left with a 2.9 GPA. I needed to maintain a 3.25 in order to stay in the program I was in, as it was also providing a scholarship. Couldn't afford school without it. I went into HVAC in the trades, with an emphasis on programming. If people are genuinely curious, I highly recommend looking into the trades. Some people just aren't meant for university, not saying they're not smart. For instance, I graduated high school valedictorian, with a 4.45 GPA. Some brains just aren't set up to be sitting learning in a desk for 4+ years. There's a stigma that it's a lower class job, but don't let that stop you. I paid off the student debt I had within a year and a half of working, and at 23 AM looking to purchase my first house. The trades, assuming you get technical training, or go into a highly sought trade, pay extremely well. I make a little over 48k a year after being in the trades for a little over 3 years, and that's still as an apprentice. Also, not bashing the humanities one bit, my brother went that route, and he's one of the most intelligent people I know. I just have a mechanically inclined mind, and it would have been wasted going that direction. They recommended I go into the humanities, the ultimate engineering burn. My university had something of a mantra within the College of Engineering. Accepted in engineering, graduated in business. Mine had a degree in information and systems technology, IST, which was considered non-engineering and separate from the CompC degrees. Everyone always said that IST actually stood for I stopped trying. Did you tell them? Humanities? HU? No. I'd rather die first. Don't you insult me. Then they'll know you're truly an engineer at heart. I had a friend who skipped all classes and failed everything because all he wanted to do was play LOL. He got a warning that if he didn't get his grades up he would be suspended for a year. He got suspended. When he went back to the school a year later the same thing happened again. Now he can't go back to that college again. I'm surprised he had time to play LOL with all the pussy he was undoubtedly pulling. My freshman class, 2007, was the first to have more dropouts due to WoW than to drugs, and it wasn't because drug use was down. The WoW crack. It was the real deal. I had to quit WoW cold turkey when I went off to college in 2007. I sold my account on eBay for like $500 to make sure I would not be tempted. I knew if I brought that shit with me, I'd just be holed up in my room all day for 8 virtual friends and missing real life. No regrets, although I did miss it. Definitely one of the better decisions I made in college. In my freshman year, we had a little programming contest and the first prize was a 6-month subscription to WoW. The teacher justified it saying so that the best of the class can waste some time on WoW and let the others catch up. Wasn't expelled but damn near. Junior year I took an elective class called Reading Fiction. Cool class, but the teacher was extremely strict and took the class very serious. I'm alright at writing papers, and this class involved heavy writing about writing techniques, symbolism, foreshadowing, act. We were assigned to read a book that I can't remember the name, but I wasn't into it at all. I struggled to finish it and struggled even more to write a detailed paper on it. I slammed out the minimal page requirement and sources needed. It was not my best work, but it was serviceable. I get an email from the teacher a few days later saying he would like me to come into his office hours. He accused me of plagiarizing certain segments of my paper, which I did not, and was ready to send my case to the dean. Apparently some things I sourced in my paper were done incorrectly, which led him to believe I straight copy and pasted from the internet. The second hour of office time was him passive-aggressively calling me an idiot. Currently am aware of a group of international students getting expelled from my school. They've been whispering to each other during exams in another language, and as luck would have it my professor happens to speak that language and has been slowly building a case against them without their knowing it. The kids somehow also got the solutions to every homework and exam last semester, which is very similar to what we've been assigned this semester. However, the kids are so fucking lazy they blindly copy whole solutions, not realizing numbers are different. Sometimes units are metric and they answer in English, and one problem asked for something completely different than they solved for using the exact procedure to solve last semester's homework. They are absolutely fucked and I'm kinda excited to see it. One of them had a 3.75 GPA, was on the verge of being auto-admitted to our MSBS program. He's probably been cheating his whole college career. We're 2 semesters away from graduation. Plot twist. The advisor to that program is the instructor that is currently building the case against them. So basically that guy is mega fucked. Professor is a savage. He's been grading all their homework and exams like everything was fine, and one day unleashed a dossier of bitch justice to comb. Edit. Anyone interested in an update? Comb didn't expel anyone after all. They all just completely lost the homework portion of their grade. 20%. So they're probably all getting C's at best. They've been whispering to each other during exams in another language, and as luck would have it, my professor happens to speak that language and has been slowly building a case against them without their knowing it. Surely this is entirely unnecessary. Every institution I have ever attended had a policy where speaking to another student during the exam whatsoever could result in a 0 for that exam. You might get away with 1 or 2 a semester, especially if it's obvious that you weren't attempting to cheat, but talking regardless of content or language is prohibited. In all of the CHEM exams I've had since I've been attending college, the exchange students sit in the back talking and even exchange calculators mid-exam. I guess the professors don't want the school to lose out on that sweet international money. International students have all the answers to tests and homework somehow. I don't know how they do it, but many of my friends as well as myself have confirmed it. Frat sororities also have tons of answers and stuff passed down from older students. Definitely one of the benefits of joining Greek life. I am actually kinda confused by that statement simply cause for my uni it is normal for everyone to have stuff from previous years. I don't think there's been a single exam where I didn't have exercises and exams with the solutions from the year before. Unless of course we were the first year to have a class with a new prof. But we still had the material from the old prof then. It depends. Sometimes, professors choose not to show old exams, because they are lazy and recycle them. This gives a huge advantage to those who have them because it's literally the same test. My school has recently done a thing where all professors lock down their old year sites with a password so you can't look up old stuff. My friend, in another university, somehow obtained an answer key after someone in his group of friends, a girl, decided to randomly visit the TAE at 3 to 4 AM. I suspect fuckery, but he won't say how it happened. Yeah, the professors are not the ones handing the stuff out to us in most cases, but there's people who take the classes the year before and they usually pass it down to the next year. We got some file transfer server where all of that stuff is deposited, and whatever you think can help others to pass the course is stuff that you upload there. I'm bipolar. Rocked college and got straight A's while I was manic as shit, sleeping 3 hours a night for several years, drinking, drugs, partying and all that. Then I curled up in a dark hole and cried for several months and couldn't even hardly wake up enough to go to any of my classes. Got academic probation and told my advisors I had no idea what was happening to me. This wasn't the real me. Managed to pull off another year of straight A's and little to no sleep. Then I crashed again and did nothing but sleep for months on end, wanting nothing more from life than for it to end as soon as possible, please. By my own hand if necessary. This time I got kicked out completely. Fast forward a few more years of the mania depression cycles and it eventually got so bad that I stole a car while manic and drove 800 miles across the US on some paranoid delusional insanity. I thought I was phasing between alternate realities and the government was going to try to capture me and study me to see how I was doing it. Don't ask. Luckily I ended up in the hospital instead of jail and I got diagnosed finally. Now I take a fuck ton of medicine, and I'm not quite so crazy anymore. The end. Our bipolar is leaking. Failing grades, insane roommates and theft accusations. I bombed out due to massive stress. Appealed. Got back in. More serious detailed response. I was going to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, one of the few places I legitimately consider hell on earth. The school paired me up with various roommates who had severe issues, refusing to shower 6 months straight, Hardcore drug addicts. A guy who openly fapped to pictures of dead bodies while I was still in the room. Nightmare fuel. The entire dorm was terrible. People were constantly kicking or punching body-sized holes into and through walls. Elevators would drop multiple floors when you were in them. It was a nightmare. And then, one winter, a fire alarm started going off every single fucking night around 2 AM and we'd have to evac the building into the dead of winter. Nothing quite wakes you up like fire alarms and freezing cold. I mentally started to lose it. My grades dropped, and I failed the semester because I could never sleep. Between the fire alarms and overwhelming funk, I was getting extremely worn down and stressed. This continued on. One of the deans calls me in one day and accuses me of credit card theft. According to the school, I had stolen a credit card from one of my roommates and racked up a massive bill. Lane Bryant, and they had proof. Lane Bryant, which I didn't know at the time, was a women's clothing store that specializes in plus size apparel. It was implied I was buying these for my girlfriend, but I had to point out to the school that I was gay. They changed their story to the fact that I must have been buying them for myself, implying I was a cross-dresser. I kind of lost my shit, and asked them to provide any shred of proof to back up their claims. They had none, but proceeded to harass me about this shit for weeks, demanding I pay back the money I never took or they'd have to escalate things. Then I ended up with a roommate who was caught growing drugs, shrooms, in my closet. He got, but the school decided that chaperoning the guy was not their responsibility, and the guy ended up stealing half my shit. To which the school was like, did you have insurance? No, haha, not our problem. Please get out of my office. After that everything tanked. The stress piled on, and the plurality of shittiness that exuded from the school got to me and I failed out. As I said, I was able to appeal, get back in and later graduate. Bonus safe drama. A few semesters after all this shit happened, the school paired me up with two roommates whose previous roommate pulled a gun on them and threatened to kill them. School moved the two guys into my room, and the guy who threatened to kill them broke into our building and got into my apartment. This school was an absolute nightmare. That school sounds like hell on earth. Someone pulls the fire alarm every night at 2 AM and he never gets expelled or caught. They had some sort of fault in the fire alarm system that caused it to go off at least once a night around the same time, very rarely more than once. The building the dorms were in were, very poorly constructed and very old, but this was just a part of life, and people who complained or tried to get partial refunds for their dorm rent were denied, because, you know, paying a shitload of money for a room to sleep in that you can't sleep in is always oh so wonderful. I had a particularly rough semester and got D in a class that I had previously dropped after about a week the prior semester because my schedule was too busy then. Department rules say that you can't attempt a class for credit more than twice, including drops. So I got kicked out of my major. I was 14 hours away from graduation at the time. The academic advisor said that I could either change my major, so basically start college all over, or fuck off for a year and then come back on probation. So I guess I'm not expelled per se, but I'm taking an involuntary gap year. Just curious, could you take the class at another school and then transfer the credit when you go back? Nah, all of my upper level classes need to be taken at the same place. That is dumb. I'm an AK student and have had to try things 3 times before. Building structures classes suck. Trust me, I know. I'm a squarely mediocre student, about 50th percentile in terms of GPA in my major, but it feels like I'm flunking out squarely on a technicality. Luckily it's not a permanent setback, but it's incredibly frustrating to watch all of my friends graduate while I feel like a complete dumbass for being a college dropout. On the upside though, it's given me time to rest and recover mentally from a very stressful 3.5 years of engineering school, so hopefully I can come out of the back end feeling like this was ultimately for the best. I deferred my studies for 12 months halfway through my degree purely to have a break from the incredibly stressful constant classes, placement, unpaid work experience in my field. I'm a nursing student, so in a hospital or other care facility partnered with a registered nurse, learning and practicing skills. And my outside jobs, I had two. I worked almost full-time for 8 months after deferring, and I'm about to travel for a couple months before going back to uni in July. Taking a break was honestly the best thing I could have done. I actually miss being on placement and learning new things that interest me, and I'm really looking forward to going back, but I feel so much better mentally. I hope you find your gap year the same. P.S. I also know the feel of watching my friends about to graduate without me. I'm happy for them, and I tell myself I can graduate with new friends I'll make when I go back to classes. Edit. Clarification on what placement is. There's kind of a reason they do this. Not every class is offered every semester, and other than lecture courses, a lot of classes have capacities they can take in a particular semester. If you've tried at least twice on the same class, that usually means you're at least a year behind on finishing that class. Overall, it can gum up the works for other students who are pushing through normally. My school's ruling was if you took a class twice for credit, drops included, and did not complete the course, you were only allowed to take it again via a summer session if the class was offered. If it wasn't offered during summer session, you had to try again with a negative weighting on your placement in the class, aka if the class was full, or near full, everyone else would get first dibs on the slot. If you still could not get the class, you would have to work it out with the professor to independent study it subject to department approval. Wait, so what if you fail something like calculus twice? Are you fucked out of all majors that require calculus? For us it's specific to my department, engineering, so it doesn't apply to out-of-department classes like calculus, chemistry, or political science, but it would apply to in-department classes like thermodynamics, fluids, or heat transfer. For engineering majors, that's basically all of the junior and senior level courses you take. My Achilles heel was process controls. However, you'd be hard pressed to make it even that far after failing calculus twice. Even getting in is competitive to a toxic degree. I went to college right after high school and didn't really have direction as to what I wanted to pursue for a career. I signed up for classes and went because I was told you are supposed to go to college and get a degree. I started to not care about school about 3-4 semesters in and stopped putting forth effort. I decided I would rather work my job, drink with friends, and play my favorite video games. My grades tanked, and then I stopped going to finals and failed many courses. My university finally gave me a warning and then dismissed me. I spent a semester off before applying to the local community college down the road to pursue a career as an EMT. I found a passion for medicine and a desire to achieve something more than drugs, video games, and a dead-end job. I repaired my GPA by getting an associate's degree in arts, general AA, and then went back to the university that dismissed me. I eventually would graduate with a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and go on to medical school afterwards, where I would finish that chapter and start my residency training in family medicine. I'm almost done with intern year. When I was in college I got suspended 3 times for bad grades. At one point my GPA was a 1.0. I finally got it together and graduated with a degree in finance, and a few years later went back and got a second bachelor's in accounting. I think my GPA is a 3.2 now. I am not working in finance or accounting because I can't find a job. I mostly just hate my life now and wish for death. Apparently you can get kicked out for not showing up to class and failing everything. Who knew? Yep, same. Then cue the almost suicide attempt. Me catching myself at the last minute and taking myself to my stoner friend to get high and then check myself into the hospital and emerge 72 hours later with a new lease on life. It actually wasn't too bad, but I say that looking back on it from 9 years removed. A quote from one of my friends that used to be suicidal. Dying showed me what living was. Kinda. I'd passively attempted it before, aka taking more of a dose than was safe of sleeping pills. But on my walk back over getting the news, with all intention of taking everything, the thought of my parents and the fact that it would kill them, that was what made me stop long enough to get in my car to go to my friends. That's something I think about a lot and that I hope my parents understand. They are so good and I love them so much that I value their well-being over the depths of my depression. I'm glad you pulled through. My cousin got expelled and hung himself that night. R.I.P. James. An acquaintance of mine got expelled and then shot herself. I suspect it's pretty common. Enrolling and attending are two different things. Source: University of Hawaii student, a former. You'd think with the way colleges are set up nowadays they'd be perfectly content to have you continue taking classes and flunking out over and over and over again. Just means more money in their pockets and loans on your back. Obligatory. I'm not an expelled college student, but I knew a guy who got expelled from an Ivy League for getting caught with too much cocaine. He works at California Pizza Kitchen now. I love that it's because he was caught with too much cocaine. Like, if he had less of it, he probably would have been alright. If only he just had a little Coca-Cola, pin and web page. Freshman year of engineering and I was all of 3 months in. I had invited the RA over to play some Halo. As he walked through the hall he noticed my dorm neighbor had his door open with beer cans everywhere. He shakes his head and reluctantly tells me he can't game and has to write this guy up. The night after, I wake up to a loud knock on my door. Thinking it's some prankster, I mumbled "fuck off, I'm sleeping." I then hear my RA's voice: "Me, it's no joke. Open up." Adrenaline kicks in and I bolt out of bed. It's the RA with 2 security guards. I was told that they were notified I had made dangerous sounding comments and had to search my room. They found a disassembled airsoft gun, battery plus spring, that I was, well, taking apart, a length of rope, and a standard toolbox, and an electronics kit. This is where it got horrible. The length of rope was wrapped neatly around a water pipe in my room. It was black and purple and my GF at the time was way into bondage and I was too lazy to put it away. Note: I was just storing it on the pipe, not hanging someone from it. The security officers claimed it looked like a noose, despite no knots. The electronics kit, they said, looked like bomb parts, to which I gave them the exact name of the professor who was helping me with my project. They also took several of my tools from my toolbox. I was immediately marched to the security office and at 2 AM had to wait for my parents to pick me up. Talk about the worst car ride ever back home. I had no idea what had happened and I wanted to just throw myself out of the car. A day later we went back to talk to the administration. It was recognized that I was thrown under the bus, but that was the extent of any sympathy given. I was faced with a full semester suspension or even have any judicial record sealed. I chose the latter. That day, in front of half the dorm, my parents and I packed up the car and left. I was able to apply and get into a different school for the spring semester, though without the $35 K scholarship I had previously received. But now I'm an employed civil engineer and life's been going pretty well. I was a friendless loser in high school and middle school, so I was very sensitive when I could tell someone else was bullied. There was a kid in my Spanish class who clearly had some autistic Asperger's stuff going on. He would ask really inappropriate questions, and everyone made fun of him, laughed at him, rolled their eyes at him, even the teacher. I felt bad for him. I asked him to work with me on a project and I invited him to my dorm room. My roommate and his friends happened to be there and were smoking before heading out. He gets all perturbed and I end up doing all of the work and letting him take credit because I felt bad. He decides to immediately go to campus security and report me for allowing illegal activities to go on. Me and my roommate and his friends all get arrested and taken away in cuffs and shackles in front of the entire student body. I then had to leave school, and my family never recovered from the whole thing. My mother recently passed away, and this incident hurt our relationship for the remainder of her life. I was forced to take NA classes and they asked me to leave since I'd never done any drugs or drank before college, and I was still in my first year. They just auto-passed me and expunged my record. At least, I was in classes with people who had scars all over their bodies, arms ruined by drug injections, people who had problems with self-mutilation and other kinds of abuse, and I was some 18-year-old goody-two-shoes nerd kid. I ended up having to spend a few months in a psych ward as well, since this incident made me suicidal since I lost my friends, my family, and my future. One mistake and it completely altered the course of my life. I was trying to help you and you fucked me. Because of what this kid did, I never go out of my way to help anyone who is bullied, and I instantly assume they fucking deserve it now. I lost all the friends I'd made in college too. I am completely friendless again, and have severe trust issues. I was expelled back in my 4th year of college. I've dealt with social anxiety since childhood and it came to a head in my 3rd year when I was having panic attacks frequently. I got help but by then it was too late for my grades because I had been barely passing classes by the skin of my teeth. I was a 4th year Comp C major who didn't know how to program at all. I tried to get back on the horse after going through therapy for my anxiety, but I felt so defeated that my grades slipped further into the hole I had dug for myself. I think the quarter I got kicked out I had 2 Fs, 2 Ds and a C. The dean sent me a letter saying I was done with engineering. I took time to get my act together, got a part-time job, lived in a shithole apartment with 7 people living in a space meant for 4 people at the absolute maximum. I worked minimum wage and realized I needed to finish school. I saw my undergrad counselor numerous times, who very graciously helped me. I needed to write out a contract addressed to the dean with my detailed plan on how I was going to prove I was worthy of being readmitted, and the classes I would take to qualify for graduation. It took a while but I eventually managed to get readmitted by working my ass off, taking summer school courses which counted toward my major and getting a 3.0 average, then following up by getting good grades once they let me back in. It was tough because I needed therapy for so many years but I didn't want to accept it until my breakdown in my 3rd year. I wish I had gotten help sooner but I truly thought I could handle it all on my own and I felt ashamed that I wasn't able to. But I'll say this, I don't regret for a second that I ended up getting help. I was a little embarrassed about it first but I soon got over that. I still have some days where anxiety is in the back of my mind, but I'm a lot better now. and I graduated. If you're struggling in school, just know that even if you get kicked out, that doesn't mean it's the end for you if you honestly want to finish. Edit. I'm trying to respond to everyone who has questions, but since I'm getting quite a few replies and PMs, I might miss yours. Please message me again if I don't respond to your question, because I really want to reply to you. Everyone who is going through something similar and wants to know more deserves a response. Edit 2. I know I still haven't responded to a lot of people, but I have to go to work now, so I won't be able to get back to you guys as quickly. I'll still read through all the responses and reply to people when I have the chance during my breaks. How do you get to 4th year computer science without know how to program? I knew the basics. Anything past that and I was at a loss. I got by because my friends helped me, and in group projects my groups probably took pity on me because I tried to be useful but I wasn't, so I was able to rely on others to make the grade. Fortunately I can program now and do so for my day job. As someone recently, albeit years later than it should have happened, diagnosed with major depressive and general anxiety, this is super inspiring. Was expelled my second semester at another US school. Think Michigan, Montana, North Dakota. It was my second semester, being an older transfer student from the mid-Atlantic. I ended up slipping on ice and fracturing my femur, my humerus and 2 fingers on ice outside my apartment. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital during that time recovering and doing PT. Finally got home. My apartment was 13 inches away from campus. Since I couldn't drive nor did they have cabs I could afford or public transit, ended up failing everything and having to move back home. Only a year later I find out about an office that can help you out with getting tuition back and expunging your record of classes due to medical issues. Had to wait a year to get back in. This year I'm finding myself in the same situation with aplastic anemia, but I only got diagnosed 1 week before my insurance expired. I'm 16 credits from graduation and I'm stuck with the bureaucratic processes of trying to take classes off the summer. It'll probably take me to mid-July, which means I have to come back in the fall to finish up. I'm about ready to give up. Don't give up. Get that fucking piece of paper. No matter how little it means to you now. You've invested a lot of time and effort on it. Don't throw it away now. Once you've graduated, you can tell the world to go fuck itself and you can move to a ranch where you tend to cows. Who cares? You'll be able to choose. But right now, you really need that diploma. Seriously. Please stay strong. This shitty phase will end up soon. You can do it. Not me, but a guy who lived on the floor below me my freshman year. Dude was already a nuisance. He got drunk and wandered into town one night. Broke a window on a private residence because he thought it was our dorm. Got arrested for breaking said window. When the school found out, they told him that if you got into any trouble either with the police or the school's internal justice system, which is actually decent, it's student run, then he would be thrown out. Same goes for getting transported to the local hospital due to excessive drunkenness. Cut to Halloween night when his roommate found him passed out covered in vomit on the floor of his dorm room. He tested positive for alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine. I'm pretty sure he was kicked out before he got out of the hospital. That's some of the worst behavior you experienced at uni? Where did you go? This sounds like a standard Tuesday afternoon at an English uni. I was expelled 3 years ago from a small private liberal arts university 2 weeks before I was supposed to graduate. I was in an upper-level algorithms course for my computer science major, and instead of a final the professor assigned a large research project on an extremely niche area of the subject. I had other classes to worry about finishing as well. So admittedly I didn't prioritize the paper as much as I should have. 3 weeks before it was due, the professor required us to submit a rough draft so he could critique and help us. My topic was so niche that I was only able to find one text on it, but it was a really good source with a very long mathematical proof, like 3 pages worth. So obviously I was going to cite this proof as the fulcrum for my paper. There was no way I could do this sort of math on my own. I could only find a physical copy of this source from the library. There was no digital copy, so in order to use and cite it in my paper I would have to transcribe 3 pages of mathematical proof by typing it in. That sounds easy enough, but the thing with mathematical papers is they use a lot of symbols. It's how the math is demonstrated. I used a language called LaTeX, which allows you to input things and make everything look nice, but it's time consuming. Here's a sample cheat sheet of the codes used to generate the symbols. GitHub web page. This took me nearly 4 hours, but I finally had a digital copy of my proof. I didn't have time to write anything more than an abstract for my rough draft, and I cited my source in the works cited section. So I turned in this to my professor as if to say, I don't have much, but this proof was hard to acquire and I will be basing my paper around it. He calls me in the next day to inform me he has reported me to the Academic Affairs Council for plagiarism. I am dumbfounded. I explained my reasoning for what I turned in and how I had no intention of plagiarizing work that I clearly cited, on a rough draft no less, to which his response was, that is for the council to decide. I appear before the council, try to explain everything in layman's terms, how I had no idea it's even possible to be found guilty of plagiarism for an incomplete work. How I would never try to steal intellectual work 2 weeks before I'm supposed to graduate. How if I had known this was possible I have turned in nothing. But they are having none of it. I will never forget how they asked me why I didn't just photocopy the textbook and submit that, given that I had a derogatory mark on my record from my sophomore year when I, stupidly, cheated of my friend's test. They found grounds to immediately remove me from campus. As in, they told me I had 6 hours to pack my things and leave or they would call the police and I would be found guilty of trespassing. I cried as I had to quickly pack my things and move back in with my parents who were beside themselves. I later saw a rumor on the campus yik-yak that I had been expelled for rape, which really drove the dagger into my heart. My girlfriend left me later that week and the silence I received from friends was deafening. I had been deeply involved in the campus community, at one point serving as the vice president of the student body, serving on the committee that selected the new university president, and many other groups on campus. I was to be one of the 3 students who spoke at the graduation ceremony, and I was to carry our class banner as we entered the ceremony. Thankfully my story has a happy ending, so far. By the time my classmates were crossing the stage, I had already found a job and was gainfully employed, where I had been myopic about my future after college. I now suddenly had a fire to regain what was taken from me. I'm on track to finish my bachelor's this year while also working at a Fortune 500. I've never shared this story with anyone who doesn't know me closely, and I'm hesitant to speak to a professional counselor about my struggles with this and an abusive ex-girlfriend, and perhaps that's something I should do. I hope someday I'm able to prove that you can lose everything and still persevere and rebuild. Every year on the 25th of April, the day they expelled me, I take myself out to a nice restaurant and promise not to let something like that happen again. Edit. The amount of support has floored me. You guys are really great. I just booked my first ever counseling appointment after a ton of you suggested to. Do yourself a favor and have a nice meal on the 25th for me. Cheers. You should have shit in a bag and thrown it onto a fan in one of their rooms. Glad there's a happy ending, but I don't understand how something cited could possibly be considered plagiarism. If you transcribed it but photocopying would have been okay according to them. How is that any different? I read the photocopying suggestion as sarcastic, not an alternative. They were claiming that not only did OP cheat but that OP put barely any effort into the work. Okay, but even if they were being sarcastic, how can it be cheating if you quote a cited resource? It's not like OP cited last semester's answer or something either. Some schools are very strict with their honor codes to the point that improper citation is considered plagiarism. I'm not in academia and don't remember anything about proper paper writing, but I do remember getting the sense that was the standard in college and thinking that it was absurd. More than a few schools use honor academic affair councils which have mix of staff and students. Neither the staff nor students have to be qualified beyond because general basic guidelines. Years with the university, not on probation etc. So there are likely only to be a few people, if any, with a strong understanding of the subject matter on a case-by-case basis. Having broad and strict standards allows these councils to lay down harsh judgments while not having to understand the nuances of each subject. For what it's worth, OP makes a compelling argument here about what their intentions were but also admits their own negligence in the initial build-up of the project. Years after the fact, OP is presenting this in the best way possible and it still sounds problematic. As someone who has no idea what any of the explanation of ARP's project means, I think I could be swayed by aggressive questioning. OP likely admitted to starting their work late, feeling overworked and overmatched by the topic, which would set a bad tone for the hearing. Add in the prior disciplinary history and it would be hard to argue against someone who was adamantly pushing for severe sanctions. I believe OP when they say they got screwed over and probably would have fought the issue, but voices like that often get outvoted and don't last long on those committees. Edit. I also believe OP regarding the amount of work that they put in and their frustration with the end result. I'm sure that whatever council OP was in front did not respect that and saw it as a sign admission of ARP's need to cheat, which further hurt their case. It's not unlike being questioned by police where every honest explanation you give can be twisted to further implicate you and silence is portrayed as an admission of guilt. Personally knew a bright individual that was kicked out of a prestigious university for skipping too many classes. He showed up for the important classes, got A's on all of the tests, but due to the fact that he had missed too many classes, he failed all of them. Must not have read that page of the handbook. He now works at the local grocery store and I see him when I come home on breaks. Edit. 2. College was Princeton. He was on a full ride. Oddly, I graduated because I read the syllabus for each class and showed up for the tests. Turns out a lot of degrees don't take attendance. I currently attend a prestigious university and 4 of my classes don't take attendance at all. I went to the first week of classes and stopped going completely except for quizzes and tests and spent my time traveling. I did get a 33/100 on one of the first tests in one of the class though, so attendance does help sometimes. A kid who worked at my dining hall got expelled and presumably arrested for breaking into girls' dorm rooms and watching them sleep. He had been doing it for a while because people were noticing their doors were unlocked in the morning. He got caught when he tickled the girl's feet. She woke up and screamed. Her roommate woke up and screamed. We all screamed and I picked up his shifts. Wasn't expelled. but was suspended. Throwaway for obvious reasons. But I was prescribed antidepressants and Vyvanse together when my university's psychiatric nurse practitioner stopped working for the university. She prescribed me with antidepressants, but not the Vyvanse, as I had stopped taking them due to the side effects. Apparently, mixing these two meds is a huge problem, but my primary physician's one, not a psychiatrist and didn't know this too, has been practicing medicine since the dawn of time and didn't even have to do a residency to practice medicine, as this wasn't required back then. Anyway, mixing these together caused me to have a manic episode. Literally thought the Masons were recruiting me to take part in their secretive master plan, and proposed to a girl that I barely knew, where I apparently banged on my roommate's door for an hour straight. I thought it was 5 minutes, and was just trying to talk to her and see if she wanted to go out to eat. But apparently I beat on her door like a crack fiend looking for his next score. She called the police and they took me to a mental ward. The mental ward held me for a day and released me while I was still manic. And I went over to my fraternity brother's place to get help contacting my parents. The cops lost my phone when they took me in. My disposition scared them so much that they called the cops and had a police detail around the house just in case I showed back up. I didn't know about this until I spoke to them when I was back to normal. The police went to my university with this info, and the university's judicial affairs met with me to discuss sanctions while I was still manic. What boggles my mind is that the JA representative who spoke with me specialized in mental illness and didn't notice that I was manic. Anyway, being manic, I was kind of an asshole to them and they suspended me for 2 years. This was especially frustrating because I was in my last semester of grad school and a month away from finishing all of my course requirements. I appealed the decision and got the suspension reduced to 1 year, served out my suspension, and finished my master's in 30 days. While I feel ashamed and embarrassed about everything that happened, I'm glad to be healthy and back on track again. How was any of this shit your fault? You shouldn't have been punished for having a crappy doctor. I was not expelled, but when I was in RA I got someone expelled. It is worth noting that this kid was already on probation for constantly throwing parties in his dorm room, lost his ROTC scholarship in the first 3 weeks, later kicked out of ROTC the week after, and had been caught twice in the same week for throwing parties after being told he was on suspension 2. Suspension 2 at my university is where you're soft suspended, basically meaning you are allowed on campus and in the dorms during the weekdays but must return home on weekends. It was likely that this was his time to go, but we had no idea that he was going to find time between then and his discipline hearing to cause an actually unique problem we would not have been aware of without a conveniently timed avocado allergy. It was a normal weeknight and I was on the 9th floor of my building hanging out with a friend. I get a panicked text from one of my residents because her roommate has been developing a rash over the course of the day and it's spreading from her hip all the way up her chest, and they are both worried about what will happen when it gets to her neck. Never fear, the RA is here. I ran down the 3 flights of stairs to help the possibly overdramatic theater majors, but on the way I slip. What do I slip in on a Monday night? That's right, it's mostly dried puke. I'm in tights and don't really have that much time to change, so I quickly get to the girls and tell them to grab coats after checking out the rash and agree it's better to be safe than sorry, and we head to the I tell them I need to grab my coat and quickly peel off my tights, trying to not think about what I've stepped in. We go through her admitting papers and try to see if there was anything out of the ordinary she had interacted with, that is food, place, sick person, no food, no weird places. Oh, there was that dude who just showed up in our room and started puking on everything and then took his pants off. What? That Saturday the girl with the rash was out late with her parents to celebrate her brother's birthday. Her roommate left the door unlocked since she'd gotten a text saying she'd forgotten her keys and wouldn't be back until after 1 AM. At around 12:30 she hears the door open and assumes roommate is home early. Nope. Not long after roommate does get home and texts girl on the top bunk because someone's in her bed already. Top bunks now believes she is in a low-budget horror movie and starts screaming her head off. This only angers and confuses her bunkmate. Intruder sits up quickly and slams his head on bed above him, rolls over, and promptly shits himself. The roommate outside hears the screaming and thuds and rushes into the room to figure out what the hell is going on. They both try to get this random dude out of their room, but he is not having it because this is his room. Imagine Elle Woods and Queen of the Sugar Plum Fairies became interior decorators. This is the dorm room they would have designed. It was not his room. They argue with him for a few seconds more and he ignores them and goes to the bathroom where they both hear him puke all over the sink, toilet, and shower curtain. Drunk Wonder Boy then comes back out to the room, peels off his pants but not his underwear, and lays down on the futon with his ass facing up, so, blessedly, no poop stains on their bright pink futon. I'm not sure how they did it, but they get him to wake up and tell him to go back to his room and he just sort of agrees this time. Tells them his room number, and off to the stairwell he goes. I ask for the guy's room number, not to get him in trouble, but because his RA might want to have a conversation about safe drinking and making sure your friends are always with you. And of course it's problem child's room number. And of course it's only one floor above us, so it means that I got a preview of this story on my way down and it's currently sitting in my dirty clothes hamper. We get the girl admitted because the nurse is actually worried about the rash and anything she might have been exposed to after we give the Spark Notes version of the last few paragraphs. God knows what was festering in this guy and they were too embarrassed, never thought anyone would believe them to ask for help cleaning their bathroom. We wait for a few allergy tests to be done and I excuse myself to make a call to his RA. The tests would later reveal she'd developed an avocado allergy that had not previously presented itself and would be totally fine. Hey, RA's name. Have you heard from Resident about something from the weekend? Christ, what now? He sort of drunkenly went into some of my residents' rooms, crawled into a bed, shit himself, puked everywhere, and then took off his pants. I fucking hate my floor. End of conversation. He was moving out of the dorm by Friday. In that time span I got to have a real fun FaceTime conversation with his mom about how I ruined his life. She was a real peach. If anyone wants to hear that story I'd tell it too. It's much shorter. TL. Doctor guy with drinking problem gives me a go-to story anytime anyone asks what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened on your floor. Edit. Mom story added as a comment to this long-winded story. The mom story. So one day I get home from class and start pretending to do homework when I get a knock on my door. This is the day after I've told my fellow RA about just how great his resident was over the weekend. Once we report stuff at my school, that's it for us. It's all handed over to our hall director and the student conduct board. Of course, it's my new best friend. He's holding his phone up to his face and I'm already confused. He says, "Yeah mom, I will say it," and I'm just like, hi, I had heard legends during staff meetings but I didn't actually know what the guy looked like past the picture he took for his student since we'd never met in person. Hi, I'm Resident, and I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about what happened the other night. I would have gone to my room but I couldn't because my roommate snuck his girlfriend in overnight and I just needed some place to sleep. Great. Now I have to potentially write his friend up because his roommate is an idiot and a narc. I would have never done that if I hadn't been drinking. Ballsy move admitting that to mom. You could even go check my trash. I'd had a bunch to drink. And we're back to stupid. Cue me trying to fix this by saying, look man, I'm really sorry but I don't control anything once it's been reported. I'm sure your has told you about the next step. I'd just be on the lookout for the note from conduct board. This is the wrong answer. Mom goes ballistic since she's on FaceTime with the dude and he just flips the phone around so I can see her. The tirade was impressive and I won't do it full justice over text, but it went something like this. My son came to name of school to become a teacher and he can't do it if you're going to make the state think he has a drinking problem. This is his future. You're ruining his life because of him making some tiny mistake. Is it really worth the power trip? Mom, your son definitely has a drinking problem. He also has a thinking problem because he's stone cold stupid. I would be scared of having him teach my kids for many reasons, and frankly I hope he got the drinking under control, but I sort of doubt it with mommy dearest blaming me for everything. She glared at everyone while he was being moved out from what I'm told. For some reason my hall director thought it would be good if I was out of the building for that. Well, that explains why he wound up getting kicked out of college. Discipline your kids folks before the world has to. At least he didn't get handsy with the girls in his stupor or he'd have had a sexual assault charge tacked on. To say nothing of how much more traumatizing that would have been for those girls. Was expelled the first time I went to college. Back in the 90s. I remember on orientation day, we walked by the fraternities and my dad got all excited. Walked up to the Phi Kappa Taus. They were pretty cool. Acted all interested in me. I didn't look around anywhere else. Hell. I was 17 and very intimidated. I rushed them. And turns out, they were massive party animals. I lived and worked 40 minutes away from school, and had a girlfriend back home. So far, right that, I scheduled all my classes at 7 to 11 AM. It was hard to get up at 5 and drive into school and pay attention in a 1,000-seat lecture hall. So I started to stay at the frat house and blow off my classes. The first semester I got a 0.0. The next, I got a .33. 1D. I wasn't the only one expelled from school that year. Me and 4 other guys were competing for the lowest GPA. What a fucking waste. Stupid colleges wasted on the young. I went back in my 30s and got my degrees, but I wasted a tremendous amount of time working shitty jobs for shitty people. Stupid colleges wasted on the young. I didn't know they had stupid college. That's just what I need. ARPS. Daily News webpage. Frat. My wife just got a second degree and it's amazing how fast you grow up from being an 18-year-old. They out to fast-track non-traditional students by not making them have to do group projects. I ended up getting my degree in 2.5 years. I flew through the material and challenged several courses. It helped that at the time I was also out of work. I was laid off in 2011 and this was during the bad unemployment days. I had 4 extensions. I enjoyed it so much. I thought I wanted to get my master's. But I had to get a job because UI was ending. School is fun. And I couldn't get enough when I finally matured enough to appreciate it. Did very well in high school. 4.8 GPA. 4 years trot. 100 plus hours of community service. Played football for 2 years. Played hockey the last 2 and was named team captain for my senior season of hockey, etc. Earned a 3-year AskReddit scholarship and my mom died unexpectedly the 5th week of my freshman year. Got back to school after being home for 2 weeks and none of my professors gave a shit except my AskReddit. Failed every class except Rotk and French. Got a D. but these get degrees right? And during my academic hearing after the first semester they literally laughed at me when I told them the reason for my poor performance was the other two. 1/2 weeks I missed due to my mom's passing. After I wasn't able to raise my GPA to 2.0 after the second semester, which was my fault, lacked a will to be there and was pretty depressed. I was expelled, lost my scholarship, and couldn't talk to my mom about it. Fuck private colleges. Wasted 20k plus there. Edit. Thanks for all the positivity, it gives me the fiddly feel. And I'm doing great now for all of those who are wondering. Currently set to leave for the Air Force the 23rd of May and I'm going to get my degree through the Air Force. Looking back I wish I would have taken that semester off, but hey, what can you do? One thing I learned from this is that no matter how messed up your situation may be, some people, or institutions, just won't give a shit. While a parent passing is a valid excuse, I feel, you can't let anything get in the way of your dreams. As my odd friend Shia once said, just do it. What the fuck kind of ass backwards school won't let you take a semester off after the passing of a parent? Fuck that school. That's fucking bullshit. I would have expected way more support from the college. Fuck them. I hope you're getting along better now. Not me, but my best friend in college was expelled. He became an nasty drunk and threw a brick through his ex-girlfriend's window. His rich parents bailed him out, and got him into the college that they worked for. Years later, he is sober and recently got married. He's probably still a fucknozzle though. Not US. I didn't show for my 2 classes on a Friday. I had an almost 2-hour commute every day and the classes on Friday were a joined class with our mentor to see if you were getting on well. And if you were, you would basically waste a good hour and a half while others moaned about how hard certain subjects were. We also had a class that was in preparation of a mandatory test. You had 2 goes throughout 3 years. If you failed both, you were done. Neither of these classes were mandatory. When I took the test the first time and got the highest score of anyone who took the test without ever being to the preparation classes, it surfaced that my mentor had actually decided that, since I was never in her class, I must have stopped attending altogether and expelled me. Loads of hassle after that. Decided to get my certificate for this test approved and then said fuck you to the whole institution. I never went back to college or uni afterwards and I'm in a really good position in my career now. 6 years later : a guy on my floor in the dorms got expelled within the first night of move-in day. Since it was the first night away from parents and we were all new to college, there were a shit ton of pop-up parties around the university. Apparently this kid did weed, shrooms, and acid all in one night, then came back near his dorm building and started heavily drinking. His roommate found him and brought him back to the dorm room. The kid proceeded to go on a very bad trip before vomiting everywhere and passing out. He apparently OD'd hard. 911 was obviously called and the police showed up and saw the sheer number of drugs. I think it was weed and shrooms. This kid had hidden in his dorm along with beer, and even a pocket knife. That's illegal on campus. He was taken to detox and was heavily charged since he was a minor and all. He was expelled before he even left detox apparently. His parents came and picked up his stuff. I don't know if he was banned from campus too or if he was just embarrassed. He became legend on our floor. Edit. All knives are illegal when living in the dorms. I think you can have a butter knife but that's it. So the pocket knife was a no-no. Also I'm not entirely sure what he OD'd on since I was never there and only heard this through his roommate. His roommate thought he OD'd on the combination of it all, though yeah, it may have just been the heavy drinking. Edit number 2. Since the OD issue is blowing up, I just want to say I wasn't there. I am telling the story as I was told by the roommate and by the police report in the newspaper. Both said OD. It may have been there wasn't an OD, but they were treating it as an OD to be cautious since he was on multiple drugs. The saddest part of this is that he probably would have been fine if he didn't start to heavily drink after he came back to his dorm. Imagine being that parent. Alright, son, you're a man now. Welcome to college. We'll call in a few days and make sure things are okay. 3 hours later. Hello, Mr. Smith? Yes, your son has overdosed and is borderline on alcohol poisoning. Lol, this thread would show up right before an exam I'm about to fail. Not Emmy, but happened to a teammate on my rowing team. He got busted for drinking, which isn't an expellable offense. But to get back at the RA that caught him, he shit into a bag, went to the guy's first floor window, and threw it into the RA's room. What made things worse is that the RA had a box fan in the window. The shit hit it and sprayed everywhere in the room. Literally, the shit hit the fan. He was promptly expelled. How did they know it was him? Oh yeah, this smells exactly like Jimmy's asshole. It must be his shit. Or was he such a dumbass that he did it the next day? He did it that same night. So the RA pretty much knew who the shit sprayer was. Also, his buddy dimed him out when confronted. He did it that same night. Brilliant. This guy was there on an athletic scholarship, wasn't he? His buddy dimed him out when confronted. What a shitty friend. Something tells me the guy who'd shit in a bag to get back at someone for enforcing rules doesn't have many friends. His buddy probably got threatened that if he knew something and didn't tell he would get punished as well. And do you really want to stand up for the guy who threw his own fesses in a fit of anger? And he probably thought, wow, my friend is a fucking dickhead and I'll be damned if I'm going down because of some totally horrible messed up thing he did. I would never rat out my friends. Unless they covered someone in their shit because they got in trouble for drinking. What a jerk. This is not my story. It's the story of a classmate. We will nickname him the Idiot. The Idiot was the top student in my promo in journalism school. This was a good school, known to create good journalists. This was because we had 4 mandatory internships in 4 different medias. The school already have partnership with said medias, and choose the internship for you, based on your preferences, your skills and your results. The Idiot got the best internship there was, at my country's most important newspaper. Think something like the New York Times. 3 weeks into it, the Idiot is caught for plagiarism. He is fired from the internship, and immediately expelled from the school, in shame. Oh, here we go. So I attended Bayou from 2006 to 2009. For those that do not know, Bayou is an incredibly religious school with some pretty insane rules. One of those is the honor code. It has made the news recently, so I won't go into detail about what it all entails, but here is the gist of it. Anything that you think is fun about college, don't do it. Anyway, I was starting my senior year and we had a party. I was one of those party kids that had a place in Salt Lake that we would go up to and get crazy for a weekend and then go and pretend it never happened. Party was great, the guy to girl ratio was awesome, and then people started pairing off. One girl ended up drunk texting her roommates. Classic drunk girl shit. And before I knew it, I had 13 missed calls from the ecclesiastical leader. Whatever. We all knew at one point this was going to happen. Monday rolls around and I get dragged out of class like we're in high school all over again and escorted to the honor code office. I shit you not. There is an entire office at Bayou that is solely dedicated to enforcing no drinking, no sex, no cheating, and to make sure you go to church. I sit down in the office knowing fully well what is going to happen. The guy asks me who all was at the party, which I thought was odd. Apparently the girl that was texting could only remember my name in the whole fiasco and I was the only one that was called in. I was given the option to tell the school who all was involved at the party and stay in school, or I could not tell on them and be kicked out. Now this enraged me at the time. A religion that focuses solely on Christ, choices, and repentance wants me to force others to confess. I tore into the honor code cop letting off an exquisite string of fuck yous and fuck this at close to the top of my lungs. After that I was escorted off campus, told to pack my things and leave. Worked out pretty well though in the end. I have a friend whose parents went to Bible college. Something fun he said was at the college I went to, you had to pay a fee if they found out you had sex. Your mother and I were very broke. Probably just a joke, but dang I laughed hard when I heard it. I feel bio is overrepresented in this thread. Any idea what their expulsion rate is? Has to be higher than most schools. It's because it's a strict religious school so you can get kicked out for bullshit reasons. But they actually have legit academic and athletic programs that draw in a lot of non-religious students. Most strict religious institutions don't really have much to offer besides continued indoctrination for parents who want to keep their now adult kids in their chosen religion so people from outside the relevant church don't attend them. Schools like Bayou and Notre Dame are the exception for religious universities, not the rule. Throwaway because I truly am ashamed of myself to this day. Came to the US to do my masters at a state university, had research assistantship and found a job at the university library a week after I landed. International Student Association was friendly and helpful, made a few friends at campus. First semester everything was going good. Not great but I was holding a 3.75 GPA. A few months later, I get introduced to the world of MMORPG by one of the kids. I started playing and soon got addicted. I'm talking cocaine level addiction. Didn't leave the room, ordered pizza in, gained 150 pounds, didn't do much work. Didn't show up to classes, stop showering, the whole shebang. End of the semester, grade dropped to 2.9. Intentional students are not allowed to have their grade drop below 3.0. Ra got cut off for sure. Kept the library job because I showed up for most shift. I also needed money for pizza. Got called into department heads off. He asked me what happened. I was already freaking out about the raw loss and was not ready to talk about the addiction with someone that barely knew me. He also didn't appear really keen on finding out the real issue. Because I couldn't give him a good reason he gave me two options. 1. Get expelled and get deported back home. 2. Transfer the first semester credits over to another university that will have me. I made the dreadful call to my parents and sibling to let them know what happened. They wanted to know what happened, and were disappointed but helped me out eventually. Got transferred to another university whose dean agreed to let me in if I checked in with him every few weeks. Finished my degree, got offered job, stayed in the US. This was 12 years ago. I am now gainfully employed and in a much better place. Addiction to games is no laughing matter. If you think a friend is addicted to games, say something. There you have it. 5 people know this story. I'm taking it to the grave with me, but it felt great to type this out. P.S. A month after I moved to the new university, I got a call from the campus security of First University asking me where I was and that the department head's office laptop had mysteriously gone missing after my appointment with him. They were basically trying to pin the theft on me. Full stop. I said I didn't have a clue about it and hung up. No follow-ups. Seriously, fuck that guy. I got kicked out of BYU, the Mormon private university, for not going to church. You have to maintain 80% church attendance alongside a whole slew of things, or your local religious leader can pull your ecclesiastical endorsement, which gives you the okay to keep attending. I had stopped believing in the Mormon faith my senior year of high school, but only applied to BYU because I loved the sports program and thought I could fake it for 4 years so I could get sweet student section tickets. Only applying to one college, a religious school, entirely for cheap sports tickets was a terrible mistake. Called the professor, who was several years younger than me, a little shithead while in class, for cracking a joke about why I was coming back to college after so long. I was in the military serving in Afghanistan, but I won the appeal. Shithead. Edit. To give a little backstory to the situation, we were assigned a group project, of which I was older than everyone by nearly 10 years. We got to a part where we were discussing technology, and the kids in my group were snickering about how I didn't have a cell phone until my senior year of high school, and describing the old Nokias. It was in good fun, and I was actually enjoying acting like an old-timer. I was around 30. The professor heard the laughing and came to see what it was all about. One of the girls repeated the conversation, and he made a comment along the lines of, I guess he joined the military because he couldn't make it into college the first time around. Now mind you, I was in college before I went into the military. I left for real reasons. I come from a very poor town, and had no parents to pay for my college. I knew that if I joined and did my 4 years, I would get my GI Bill, which would prevent me from going into massive student loan debt. This was also not long after 9/11, so I was also feeling very patriotic and wanted to serve my country. Of course, after I got out, I went straight to work in another career field, and it took some time for me to go back to school. Edit 2. I was off on the ages. That sucks. Ex-military students were always my favorite to teach. Always showed up to every class, followed the rules, and even called me mom despite me clearly being too young to teach the class. I was in a similar position. Came back after 7 years, to have people I went to HS with teaching me undergrad courses. Well heck, if they spent those years getting good at something, then there's nothing weird about them teaching it to you. They better not be a dick about it, though. That's what I was thinking. Don't think of it as someone you think you're equal to being above you. Think of it as someone with a lot of knowledge and passion in a subject trying to help their society gain the same experience. Not me, but a friend. Let's call him Ben. Was expelled his sophomore year. Ben came from a very conservative Christian family. His father and grandfather were pastors. Ben went to the same religious college they did. That college had strict rules about dressing modestly and fraternization of opposite sexes. If I recall, there were different levels allowed that depended on age roll at school. Ben was caught off campus seeing a movie with a girl. Apparently they should have had a chaperone. I think it was also not the first time he had broken the rules. Ben was promptly expelled. His parents were so upset they sent him on a year-long mission overseas. Edited. Cute part, upset. Was it Bob Jones University? I had a friend whose parents actually had to talk her out of going there. She got caught up in a brainwashy Jesus cult. Oh god, Bob Jones is crazy-pants. I went to college in like the next city over and had good friends who went to another university in the same city as Bob Jones, and if I recall correctly, a friend from the area who actually knew someone who went there. They have some insane rules. We used to see them around town in their dress-up clothes not talking to the opposite sex. I was expelled from all college residences for stumbling home from the pub. finding an unlocked door in the food hall, taking 3 10-liter tubs of ice cream and going around on a bike blasting green sleeves pretending to be an ice cream truck at 2 AM. Knew this one dude that was caught masturbated multiple times in a utilities closet. Yes, this is a throwaway. No, I am not him. Throwaway Khan. Khan is beef, which is meat. Throwaway meat. It was you, kid. I like how he got caught multiple times. Some people just don't learn their lesson. I started studying immediately after graduating from the German gymnasium. Basically high school. I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. My parents wanted me to go studying instead of just sitting at home doing nothing all day. They chose the university for me, which was 6 hours away from my home. Doesn't sound much for my fellow Americans, but that distance is half the country here in Germany. We were pretty late with renting a flat there, and eventually I got into a dorm with 5 other students which were 5 years older than me. Went to the lessons and tried to make friends. But as it turned out, most of the people in class already knew each other because they were in school together. It was pretty hard to fit in at first. Found a decent guy eventually, but he quit university after 2 months. So there I was. Basically alone in a big city knowing no one. Far away from my everything I knew. Studying wasn't that good either. Mathematics of economics were the first lessons and was completely overwhelmed. In my school there wasn't any kind of economics taught at all. We also had a decent amount of advanced accounting, which I haven't heard of before. I couldn't visit the informatics lesson because they happened at the same time as the math class 3 kilometers away. The university was kind of bad in that regard. So I started gaming a lot because I could stay in contact with all my old friends there. After a year I got a letter that I am expelled for not showing up. Went home and showed the letter to my parents. They were furious. After that I wrote some job applications and got an internship at a major bank in Switzerland because I was quite good at programming. After half a year they gave me an unlimited contract. Went studying in Zurich while I was working. Made lots of friends. Met my future wife a few months into the internship. 10 years have passed. I left the bank and started a new job in software engineering, which brings 140k a year. Got a big house. Drive a Tesla Model S. So things worked out in the end. Never give up. Just keep going and explore possibilities. Never be ashamed when something doesn't work out the way you thought it would and you want to quit. Got expelled myself. Second year medicine student, came back from a heavy night of drinking, lit up a Marlboro Red and subsequently passed out from the drink. Woke up dazedly to huge hands grabbing me by the scruff of my shirt and tossing me from the room and dragging me backwards out the shared flat we had. Firefighters had responded to the multiple phone calls of smoke coming from my window and saved me from death by smoke inhalation. Slept at a friend's house that night. I was a mess, still not fully comprehending what happened. When we went back the next day to collect my belongings and the full room was torched. Surprisingly the rest of the house was left intact. I lost everything. And I mean everything. My family's home was 200+ miles away and I had no phone, wallet, clothes. Everything I owned destroyed because of my own stupidity. Obligatory, not me, but my girlfriend. Her university expelled a bunch of students who talked to their friends about their depression and thoughts if self-harm. Seriously, this ass-backwards university discriminated against a ton of students with mental illness and are now being investigated by the Department of Justice. Friend got kicked out for not showing up to classes. Dumbus. Now he is 12k in debt and got nothing from the experience. My dad teaches at a Christian college. I was forced to attend because hey, free tuition. I lasted 1 year then got kicked out for not being godly enough. I was so fucking happy. It was a stressful environment. Not the classes or professors. Some of the nicest people ever. It was the students and RRD in my dorm that made it awful. I'm not social. At all. Or religious. I also don't like being awoken at 2 AM by other girls on my floor blasting pop music as loud as possible. So I'd often get confronted about my attitude, and why I didn't want to sit with my dorm mates at meal times, and they took my antisocialness as me being not right with the Lord. Honestly, I'm a Christian and opted out of attending a Christian university for this reason. There's just this constant expectation that you be open and verbal, which I'm just not comfortable with. Also, set meal times can eat my ass. Was a 90% plus student in high school. Went to a prestigious college that required you to keep an 80% plus average. I did pretty well but ended up getting an eye infection during the first semester of midterms and struggled to play catch up. Ended up getting depressed about grades and the pressure to do well. Depression is a killer. Started skipping class to sleep and started having anxiety issues. Studied for exams but anxiety got so bad that I couldn't physically make myself write exams. Failed the first semester. Failed the second semester. Continued to stay depressed. Got kicked out of school. As morbid as this sounds, I was able to go home to my family who were my biggest support. They stood by me while I took the year off, worked in retail, got in a better state of mind to handle depression. Then went to college near my house, not as great as the previous college. Continued to struggle with grades, even failed a few courses. My family continued to support me. Spiritually, faith in my religion helped too. This May I hope to graduate and have a job lined up. My Asian parents still don't understand the extent of my depression, but they support me. The worst part is I am not alone, and there are statistics to show that this is quite common. But not everyone has the same opportunities as myself. TLDR. Depression is a bitch. But don't let that drag you down. Keep trying. Family is the best. All these stories of students getting the boot for mental health issues is seriously disconcerting. I peed onto a rival fraternity's back porch. The lights were off at their house, so I didn't know they were all inside having movie night. They all saw. Severe depression, lack of motivation, skipping class, failing grades. Edit: I am better now and thankfully about to graduate at 22. If anyone is suffering like how I did, need some advice, someone to talk to, feel free to PM me. I will be glad to help. Just as a note, I will ask some questions about your current situation. Very basic ones, so I can understand it better. It is your choice if you want to answer them or not. I will not repeat what you told me to anyone else. Also, I am not a licensed therapist. This is a free service. I just want to help others get out of the same situation that I was currently in. Questions. Copy and paste onto the PM please. 1. What is your current major job and do you like what you are doing? 2. If no to the second part of question 1. What would you like to do with your life? 3. What are your passions? Music, art, sports, etc. Feel free to describe it as much as you want. 4. Do you own a pet? 5. Are there any recent events that could possibly be triggering your depression? Your parents divorcing, friend died, pet died, etc. This one you can leave blank if you wish, and I apologize for causing any bad memories to pop up. 6. Are you in any professional therapy? I was at a party with friends and I guess they were better friends with some girl who had a crush on me. I had rejected her a few times before, but this night she kept pestering me and grinding up on me. She gave me a drink and I drank it. Next thing I know I wake up and she's riding me. I just feel really tired and exhausted and I can't really move, but I know what's happening. I keep saying get off, get off, get off, and she just keeps going. I just decide to let her finish, and when she's done I just go back to sleep because I just feel so exhausted. Next time I wake up I can move and I absolutely lose my shit. I'm cussing her out. I cuss out my friends for letting it happen. They all tell me quit being a bitch and man up and admit you liked it. They couldn't understand that I didn't want to have sex with this girl. Anyway, she had this smirk on her face like she won something and kept saying how great the night was. Every time she spoke and looked at me I kept getting angrier and angrier. Eventually I slapped the shit out of her and left. She called campus PD and said I assaulted her. That turned into I raped her. School investigated and immediately found me at fault. Real cops weren't involved at all. Administration just decided I was guilty all because that bitch claimed I raped her. I wanted them to test my blood and everything to see what I was drugged with. Nope, I'm guilty, and they decided that before even speaking with me. My name was in the newspapers. I got death threats. My parents got death threats at their house. I got kicked out of school. This was 3 years ago. My life is pretty much done. Everywhere I go I'm a rapist. Been living with my parents not doing shit. So, point blank, she raped you. Fuck, dude. Just fuck. I'm so sorry. I got expelled at the end of my second year, out of 3 total, in my undergrad bachelor due to an administrative error. I am a 20 years old woman who suffers from severe fibromyalgia, diagnosed last year, but onset late 2013 due to a bad motorbike accident. I have also had depression and generalized anxiety disorder since 2012. Compounded with severe arachnophobia. Given that I live in Australia, I'm sure you can imagine why that last part is particularly unfortunate. I was very lucky to do well in my final year of school, and I got into my first choice course at the best university in the country. This was all well and good until I realized that I would be getting up at the 5th of May 1930 am every day to travel 2.5 hours for an 8 to 9 am class. I had 5 hours of classes every day with a 2-hour break in the middle every day. I wouldn't get home until 6 to 7 p.m. every night. This totaled 50 hours, meaning I had no time for a job. Not that I could get one because I'm literally disabled and only legally allowed to work 15 hours a week now that I'm on the proper support. What was I thinking? And we all know how hard it is to just do your work on the train. After all that, can you blame me for wanting to defer a semester? That's what I did, because hell, it was getting to me. I had no life, no time with my friends or boyfriend, mildly abusive parents, and an assortment of various unlucky issues that I was not being treated for. When filling out the online form, I was asked what date I would like to return. Nowhere was it specified what date the leave started, so I assumed it meant all subjects I was currently enrolled in. This was not the case. I was taking a compulsory mid-year subject in the break. July. Nope. I don't even get a break on the holidays. And that subject continued over the second semester with a few tutorials. The exam was at the end of the year, November. When trying to enroll for my subjects at the start of this year, I was informed that I couldn't because I had an outstanding request for a meeting with some kind of committee to tell them why I was failing. I was obviously surprised because how do you fail subjects you are not enrolled in? Turns out, the system read that July subject is already being finished, so I technically failed it. In the end, I just decided to say fuck it, left it till I got expelled. After printing out my transport concession card and making sure my student card was valid, Of course. And now I am waiting to enroll in a course that I really love, at a university that is well renowned in the field. The best part? The campus is 10 minutes from my house and on the same bus and light rail route as me. Yeah, I'm still sick. And I just lost my job because I can't do as much as other people. But at least I'm a little bit happier. And I'm not a zombie. Now that I actually have the time, I might find a hobby to take up. I've never really had a chance before. Didn't get expelled but straight up failed a class in a sorta hilarious fashion. I thought it would be a bright idea to have a flying squirrel as a pet my junior year in college. So I order the fucker and it comes in the night before a huge physiology exam. I was told I had to bond with it for the first few days and keep it in my shirt breast pocket at all times. So I stay up all night with it and go into the class at 8 AM pretty disheveled. I had the squirrel in my pocket with a leather jacket over top. All is well to begin with. It's a huge herd class and I take my seat. Test gets handed out. Squirrel is sleeping. But of course for whatever reason she decides to wake up just as I start taking the test. At first it's fine. She's just dicking around in there. Then after a bit she starts to leave the pocket and cruise around the inside of my jacket. So now I am getting a bit worried. I keep reaching in there as casually as I can and put her back. I even button the pocket but out she comes again and now she is exploring the small of my back, leaving the confines of my jacket and from what I could tell going down onto the seat behind me. So at this point I am freaking out that she is gonna get down on the floor and all hell is gonna break loose. I am also concerned that my frantic reaching inside my jacket is going to look like I am up to no good. Possibly draw the teacher's attention thinking I have some hidden cheat sheet in there. So anyways it gets to the point where she is uncontrollable. I suck it up and literally fill in all C's on the multiple choice test and go up and turn it in literally about 10 minutes into the exam. The teacher looks at me bewildered and I'm just like sorry. Needless to say I failed that test hard. Think I got like a 12% on it. Ended up failing the class when all was said and done. Had the squirrel for 12 years though and graduated anyways so no worries. Also another fun aside story, my roommate missed a final exam once cause we were fucking destroying it on some old school NES 2-man jackal. All of a sudden on the last stage he pauses it and is like I think I had a final exam today, walks over to the calendar and is like yup, walks back, unpauses it, and we continue wreaking shop. XGF accused me of rape for revenge, basically had no shot at these hearings they have at school, there was no evidence or whatever but her dad was a cop at the school and I had no shot, ruined my life, no criminal charges or investigation or anything of that nature, just sat one day in front of some profs and administrators and next thing I knew I was gone man. XVNK did the same shit to me too. Caught her cheating on me, kicked her out. Couple days later there's cops at my door saying that I had assaulted and raped her. This all forced me to miss a set of midterms with no makeup allowed. Failed all my classes but one that semester. Was put on her academic probation. It was insanely hard to get my head straightened together the next semester to keep a 2.5. Deleted 0.3726. What is this? This comment has been overwritten by this open source script. https://greaserfork, pastabin.com webpage. I once knew a guy who could have been a great golfer. Could have gone pro. All he needed was a little time and practice. Decided to go to college instead. Went for 4 years. Did pretty well. At the end of his 4 years, his last semester he was kicked out. You know what for? He was night putting. Just putting at night with the 15-year-old daughter of the dean. I went to Stanford, but my roommate and best friend, Bryce, Told a professor he had found a stolen answer sheet for a test in our room and that I used it to cheat. I had never seen that shit before in my life. I was expelled 12 credits short of graduation. Then Bryce banged my girlfriend. Now I work in retail tech support. Fucking douchebag. That's one of those times when killing a motherfucker and feeding him to the pigs is acceptable. Have you ever considered opening your own business? I always liked the name Carmichael Industries. Oh man. Some dude was creeping around trying to get into women's rooms in the dorms. Every guy, including myself, that matched the description was pulled aside and questioned. They decided it was me. My roommate vouched for me and I offered to keep a webcam or something to that effect in my dorm on loop to prove my whereabouts. Like I'm gonna be up at 5 AM doing shit. They weren't interested in proving my innocence. That much was clear. After continued bullshit including then waking me up early as fuck accusing me of skulking around minutes earlier, as if I was faking my morning stupor and my roommate was lying to cover me being a fucking creeper. Finally they smelled the devil's plant in my dorm. They asked permission to search. I refused. They asked repeatedly, and I refused repeatedly. Finally they decided they could just lie in their report and say I gave permission anyways. I was separated from anyone outside of law enforcement. Who would believe me, right? And away they went. They found my weed, some shrooms I'd had for a few months and a lockpicking kit buried in a drawer that my friend had given me for my birthday sometime earlier. Jackpot. Clearly I was sneaking around and picking locks on doors in a massively populated dorm with people in the fucking rooms to rape and murder women within earshot of 100 other people. Fucking brilliant. Got some felony charges for possession of drugs and the lockpicks. Seriously? A felony California and I spent the night in jail. Wasn't allowed to go back. But fuck that, I went straight there anyways and slept for the rest of the day because I was tired as hell. And then I was expelled. Now for the kicker. I reapplied as a former student. They had some special provisions for that. And because my grades were fine they let me back in. Graduated that bitch with my BS in physics, minoring in math. Best revenge I could have possibly hoped for. Fuck you campus PD. You incompetent fucks. Edit. Yes, I did drugs. You can make your own judgments on that. No. I don't want or need your pity. This is just my story, as requested by the OP. Yes, I moved everything off-site for a while and brought it back into my dorm when I thought it had blown over. Yes, it was dumb. Hindsight is 20/20 and maybe even my foresight could have used some work. I was 18 and came from an area where smoking weed wasn't even remotely interesting to the local PD. I should have thought that through a little better. Yes, I went back and gave them my money. Without that degree I wouldn't have the job I have today. So at the very least it's a draw. I don't hold the school liable for what happened in any respect. I meant it was the best revenge against the campus PD, not the school. Because they're still stuck doing the shittiest police work imaginable and I'm doing pretty well. Edit 2. Holy shit. Best gold I've ever received. The message. Fuck these armchair geniuses. Thanks anonymous redditor. You made my day. You sound pretty stupid if you were being watched and still kept drugs in your room. The real WTF to this story is that if you knew they were constantly trying to find reasons to search your room, why didn't you dump the stuff that could incriminate you? Apparently you can be smart enough to get a physics degree and at the same time be retarded enough not to realize that you're gonna get your shit searched if they suspect you of being an aspiring rapist. Well, did the attacks continue while you were gone or did they mysteriously stop? I was expelled from my first university for having sex in the library. Well, for getting caught having sex in the library. I learned about a year later that the girl I had sex with did not get expelled because male privilege, etc. If this is real, you should file a Title IX or whatever gender discrimination thing people do. This would have been back in 2002. At the time, I thought it was bullshit, but I didn't want to bring the girl into it again. Plus I was already at a different university having fun. If it had happened in today's climate, I absolutely would have filed a discrimination suit though. Was told that I didn't attend class enough, and would either be failed or have to drop out. My grades were fine. I just couldn't show up for every single class, especially since I had just lost 2 young family members to a house fire. Fuck that community college. I put a sock on the fire alarm and got kicked out of halls and expelled. I wasn't even smoking. I was playing with indoor sparklers. I'm starting a new degree this year. I was expelled my freshman year and kicked off the football team. After I had come back to school from winter break, I was pulled aside by my position coach and given a stern talk. Stuff along lines of, "Listen, all the coaches know you smoke weed and we know you've been selling it as well." I played it off like this was news to me, but he wasn't buying any of that bullshit. I remember him directly saying, "I'm not asking you if you are. I am telling you that we know you are." He went on to tell me this was my warning and they wouldn't proceed to punish me as long as I stopped. In my own ignorance, I thought there was no way they could prove this, and I continued on with what I had been doing. A bit more discreet, but definitely carried on. Living in the dorm made it tough, but since Myra lived next door to me and smoked weed with us occasionally, I felt pretty safe in the level of discretion I was practicing. Fast forward a month. Boom. Random drug test with my name on it. I have very little notice before giving my test and they were sure this was where I was going down. Nope, I had a drug test kit prepared and I was able to pull off a completely clean test, which left my coaches baffled and honestly seemed to irritate them when it came back clean. Another couple weeks go by. I get word from one of the RAs that the cops are doing random dorm search and headed to our floor shortly. I quickly clean up any paraphernalia and move any products I had left to my buddy's house a few blocks down the street. Cops search our dorm. The dog hits on a few items, but after further inspection they find nothing and leave empty-handed. I lay low for a couple days, then continue on as normal. I was a lot more careful this time to only let the people I had established relationships with and close friends come into the dorms to avoid any unwanted attention. So it came to my surprise that another couple weeks later I was called into my coach's office, and this time there was a school official there and the athletic director. They asked me if I had been smoking in the dorms and selling weed. I obviously responded that I had not and even had a clean drug test a few weeks before, to which they brushed aside. They pulled out an audio recording and played it for me, which basically was an interaction of multiple people in my dorm room talking about blazing and packing bowls. It also included people asking for me to weigh them out at 10 sack and stuff of that nature. They asked if that was my voice on the recording. It clearly was. I started to search my mind furiously, trying to decipher who was the undercover I had let in my room that would rat on me like that. I never admitted to it, but apparently they had all the evidence they needed. I was kicked off the football team and expelled the next day after they had contacted my parents. My dad had called me after speaking with them and told me he believed it was for the best I was getting out there, with consequences he seemed to believe were minimal given the circumstances. I told him they had never caught me in the act and I even passed a clean drug test, but he just continued insisting that I not fight this and we look into different options next year. It was like he was hiding something from me. He was. Upon speaking to my coach about the situation, my dad was informed the way they had been getting this info from the start. All the way up to the recording was none other than my roommate. Not only a roommate, but a teammate as well. They told my dad this and begged him to not inform me of this until I had left the school and was back in my home state. He told me the first week I was home. Honestly, it completely shocked me and I would have never expected it. My roommate had smoked with us multiple times. We were close from what I thought, and he had a pretty nice pill addiction I never revealed to anyone. But nope, he had been ratting on me from the start. I didn't speak of this for another 2 years. While in this time I had landed at another school in my home state and was playing on the football team there, until one night I am on my laptop and I get a Facebook message from, you guessed it, asking me how I was and saying how he missed me up there. Lol. I thought about not responding, but after a week I finally decided to tell him I knew it was him all along and I've never been so betrayed in my life. Wanted nothing to do with him. Never read the message he sent back. Edit. TLDR. Got caught selling and smoking weed my freshman year in college. Coaches and the school tried multiple times to catch me in the act. Never did. Got audio evidence of me in action somehow. Never admitted to it. It was my roommate all along ratting on me. Edit 2. Adding this since I am getting a lot of messages. 1. I by no means am playing the victim card in this. I know I made the conscious decision to keep going. Just wanted to share the story, not looking for sympathy. Getting kicked out of that school was what I deserved, and honestly 8 years later looking back it was one of the best things to happen to me with where I am now too. Yes, my dad is a good dad and I would have given my son the same advice. 3. If you think people who smoke weed belong in prison, you have some issues of your own to work out. Sounds like they caught your roommate and forced him to rat on someone to avoid prosecution. Reduce the penalty. Happens all the time. Shitty situation all around. Your dad wasn't wrong that you should accept that minimal punishment and move on though. Super fun read. Well done. You seem like you're trying to make yourself to be the victim though when you were definitely given fair warning. Super low of your roommates to do that then pretend like nothing happened though. At my school a kid got kicked out for posting "Tomorrow I'm going to shoot all black people." A smile. Insert smiley emoji. On yak yak. Someone reported it but omitted the smile part. A lot of people freaked out. Kid got kicked out. The school found this a good opportunity to throw him under the bus to show their support for minorities and show they care. He's currently suing the school because they took a misquote and rode with it even after being corrected. That's pretty much the TLDR version. This happened last year. At UCSC a bunch of Porter students were expelled for stealing and cooking a $5,000 koi. Here's the article. Santa Cruz mourns one that didn't get away. Beloved campus koi stolen. Possibly grilled. SF Gate webpage. I went to a Christian school for kicks, and because I got a scholarship I was raised Christian so I had some familiarity with their shtick, but I had already moved beyond it. I got kicked out as I was registering for my second semester. The dean said I didn't fit in there. I was breaking the rules by having hair down past collar length while being a guy, and I'm pretty sure they knew I smoked cigarettes, which was right out, and it's possible that they knew that I didn't really care much for Christianity and had more respect for Eastern religions. You got a scholarship to college and didn't just follow the rules while you were there so you could get your degree. Did you end up getting a different scholarship somewhere else? What with the rules against hair being past collar length? Sounds like this was back when school wasn't so fucking expensive. It wasn't a 4-year fully paid scholarship, it was a few $1,000s for a year. I ended up paying about the same or less at a state university without a scholarship. I had only intended to go there for a year. Anyway, I was curious. I wasn't dedicated to the Christian university scene. And I actually did cut my hair before the dean expelled me. He told me I couldn't register for class. This wasn't before computerized registration. It was before computerized registration at small church schools. Until I did so I did, and I went back to register, and that's when he expelled me. The entire reason he gave me was "you don't fit in here." I had a friend who got kicked out of school because someone reported to the administration that she had attended a party at which alcohol was served. She didn't drink. There was just alcohol at the party. It was easy to not fit into that school. I was breaking the rules by having hair down past collar length. Don't most depictions of Jesus portray him with long, unkempt hair? I'm pretty sure they knew I smoked cigarettes. Which was right out. Matthew 15:11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Edit. I'm not even religious, but hypocritical. Holier than thou Christian hypocrites are the worst. I hope you blew smoke in the principal's face and told him to go fuck himself. Don't most depictions of Jesus portray him with long, unkempt hair? It's more an issue of strict decorum rather than an actually religious matter. Of course long unkempt hair isn't actually unchristian. Matthew 15:11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. They didn't have a problem with him inhaling, but when he breathed out the smoke they were like, caught you motherfucker. Matthew 15:11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. So you're not gay if you swallow afterwards? Rejected girl. Girl put knife from home ec into my bag. Reports I have a knife to the office. Bag searched. No one believed my story since I was an edge teen. Asked to leave. Grade 11. Never finished HS. Sent emails to my teachers that I didn't like from the principal's email address saying they were fired. Ending fights. I was sort of semi-famous when I was in middle school and high school because I won a lot of judo competitions, and despite me not telling anyone this when I got to college, Google was kind of getting big, as was all the MMA and tap out shit. Well, as you might guess, it seemed like every fucking a shat that spent a couple hours at an MMA gym wanted to try their badass skills on me. Me at the time being a 150 pounds shy dude just trying to get my degree. Not one single time had I ever started anything. It was always some 250 pound meathead with a big mouth, a tap out UFC pride shirt, and they always did the watch I got bro chest push shit. I ended up breaking 2 arms, spraining an ankle, and then another guy straight sucker punched me. I took him down and in doing so, fractured his skull and he ended up in a coma for a couple days. That was the one they kicked me out for. The fuckers even had video of the guy straight punching me in the mouth as I was walking to class, but they insisted that I was causing this. My scholarship was initially revoked, however after about 21k in lawyer's fees, the school settled for giving me the cash and lawyer's fees as I was suing for several $100,000. I am technically under an NDA, but fuck it. I haven't named the school. I ended up pocketing the cash and joined the Navy and had an awesome 6 years and an air crewman on an E-to-C as an at. Prestigious school where 250 pound people pick fights with 150 pound people unprovoked. Seems legit.